the sounding deep. The harbour that called itself neutral had the manners of a spy. Its water was too calm, its quays too clean, its officials too polite. We lay under a flag that wasn't ours and paid fees that felt like bribes. The Dauntless rode at single anchor, her hull mirrored in winter-dark water, lanterns hooded against curiosity. 3 weeks had sanded the edges off our wounds, and none of the truth. Frost limned the rail. Ropes crackled when bent. The men worked without chatter, the way soldiers do when a church is in the room. Edie stayed below in irons with a marine at his elbow. Mr. Green kept to his hammock and invented ways to be forgettable. Captain Godwin stood long hours at the taffrail and talked quietly with the weather, which was polite enough not to answer. At dawn, a Swedish harbour master came aboard with a list that was more theatre than inventory. He admired the guns he wasn't allowed to notice and praised the discipline he hoped would not be tested in his harbour. "We are very neutral," he said, in the tone of a man who sleeps poorly because of it. "We are very temporary," I answered. He left with relief on both our parts. By noon, an Admiralty cutter threaded the buoys with the speed of bad news. She ran up a private signal that made the deck stiffen. Collier's voice went hard and practical. "Boat away!" The officer who climbed our side carried authority like a blade. Neat coat, colder eyes. He offered his name as if it were a warrant. "Mr. Avery Locke, Admiralty. I am to observe, advise, and if necessary, correct." "Correction is a naval habit," Godwin said mildly. "We prefer to perform it ourselves." Locke's gaze took in the ship, the crew, and finally me, a glance that weighed and filed. "Lieutenant Harcourt?" "Aye. Your presence is requested ashore at the consulate at 6 o'clock. Board of Inquiry, preliminary." "Requested?" Godwin repeated, almost amused. Locke's mouth almost smiled. "The Navy has always preferred courtesy when compulsion will do." He handed me a sealed envelope. The paper smelled of London the way rope smells of tar. Admiralty Board of Inquiry, held under the Swedish flag by indulgence of a friend of His Majesty. Politeness perched on every word like frost. Godwin folded the order with excessive care and returned it to me. "Very good," he said, as if I had just suggested extra grog. "Mr. Harcourt will attend." Locke turned to go, then paused and placed one pale finger on our quarterdeck rail, as if testing the grain. "A word of counsel, Captain. Inquiries prefer simple narratives. The one you presently possess is not simple." "Then it will have to become interesting," Godwin said. "We are not a simple ship." Locke's eyes did a small, professional thing that looked like thought not being admitted in public. He went down into his boat without another word. Wren coughed a laugh into his glove. "Our new friend carries the smell of ink where most men keep blood." "He is the Admiralty made human," I said. "He will always arrive in time to tell us what we did wrong." That night wore a conspirator's coat. Fog came off the water, thick at the ankles. Street lamps along the quay blurred into coins. We blacked ship at 8 bells. Lanterns hooded, talk reduced to hand signs and old jokes. The marine sentries paced their short arcs, boots whispering on frozen plank. At 9, something in the air stopped agreeing with itself. You learned to feel it. The ship's breath caught. The harbour's silence acquired a weight. "Starboard gangway," Collier murmured at my shoulder. "Hear it?" I did, the scratch of an oar not wanting to be a noise. A boat where there should be tide. "Marines to the waist," I said softly. "No shots unless I say." The fog thinned for a moment like a curtain lifted by a bored hand. A dark skiff nosed under our chains. 3 men down, 1 up, all wrapped against the world. The one standing had the posture of a man who owns other men. "Hook him," I said. A grapnel bit wood with that drugged little thuck. The skiff lurched, surprise passing through the men like a disease. Our Marines had the boat alongside before their hearts had time to choose panic. "Easy," I said, stepping into the lamplight we did not have. "You're about to make a mistake in the wrong language." The standing man looked up. His face had been arranged for anonymity and then forgotten. He held up open hands with an actor's reluctance. "We come for garbage," he said in sea-worn English. "From your scoppers, harbour rules permit." "Your accent," Wren observed pleasantly, "was made in 3 parts and assembled in a hurry." Collier lifted a tarpaulin from the skiff's floor, as if unveiling a painting in a gallery. Under it, a wrapped chest, the size of a conscience. The seal on its lid had the look of something copied by a hand that admires itself. "Garbage," I said. "Of course." I put a boot on the tarpaulin. "This rubbish belongs in our hold, Sergeant Dash Dash." The man moved then, a dagger in the hand not being held up. He lunged at air where my chest had been a half-second earlier. The blade met fog and my fist met his wrist. We both remembered anatomy. I had the better teacher. The dagger rang on deck plank. The Marines expressed their professional opinions with wood and iron. When everyone's plans had failed, we had 2 prisoners and a skiff that would never admit to this voyage. The chest had a split along one edge where a too eager nail had forgotten its job. Inside, paper, signal books, chart copies, a letter addressed in English to a Frenchman who hadn't asked for it in writing. The wax seal bore a crest that had learned to lie politely. Godwin looked, Wren looked, I looked. We all practiced not thinking of London. Put them in the cable tier, I said. Let their bones learn to curve around rope. Godwin's mouth bent toward a smile he didn't own. The harbour was very neutral tonight, he said softly. As neutral as a fence. I met him at the taffrail later. The fog nibbled at our boots. Key lights smudged the water. Somewhere a church bell practiced being solemn. Will you sleep? I asked. I will practice, Godwin said. Then he asked your name with his eyes. That Admiralty boy. Locke? That one. A man who reads rooms and then rearranges the furniture inside himself. He turned his head slightly, and in profile looked older than he had yesterday. When you answer them, answer as if your words will be printed, because they will be in the places that matter. Is there a right answer? I asked. No, he said, but there are survivable ones. He went below, and for the first time in weeks, I wanted England. Not its comfort, there isn't any, but its habit of pretending to order. At 6 of the clock, the consulate lit its lamps like eyes. We rode toward them through fog that tasted of iron. The building had been designed to make truths feel smaller. Locke was waiting at the top of the steps with a ledger under his arm. He looked at me as if measuring a plank. Lieutenant, he said, on time, admirable. Is the hour one I may survive? That depends on your story. Truth, then, I said. He held the door and smiled with his mouth. Ah, he said, the expensive option. The room within had the temperature of a bad temper. A table, 3 chairs, a coat of arms that wished it were more specific, and 2 men who had learned to be quiet for a living. I signed my name where ink told me to. They asked about the fjord, the white flag, the envoy, the shot. I told them what happened. I even told them what didn't. They asked about the chest we had found last night without admitting they knew it existed. Do you believe Captain Godwin suitable for continued command? Said the one with the moustache that looked like a parenthesis around unkindness. He is my captain. Do you believe him suitable? Locke repeated, softer. I remembered Godwin's voice after the envoy fell, remembered his restraint in the face of what would have satisfied him, remembered the nights he spoke with the empty north and got no answer. He is dangerous in a way that has saved ships, I said. That kind of danger does not retire on command. They wrote that down in London syllables. Then they asked about me. Are you aware of your authorization to remove him? Locke said. I am aware of many authorizations, I said. Some of them have better handwriting than others. And the packet? He asked, casual as weather. What packet? The third, he said, and the words stood between us with teeth. I have never seen it, I said, which was true enough for now. I have seen many things I dislike. That was not one of them. He watched me, not blink. He closed his ledger with the sound of money being disappointed. That will be all. Outside, the harbour had acquired a wind. Flags remembered their occupation. On the consulate steps, under a lamp that boiled moths, a woman stood with a shawl and a posture that meant not helpless. She lifted her chin an inch. Harcourt, she said. Eleanor. The name timed my breath. The shawl was cheap enough to make her invisible and warm enough to be love. The face was the same as in memory, only more true. You choose inconvenient places, I said. Neutral ground is kinder to impolite truths. Her voice was low. The words stood close together for warmth. Locke is not only Admiralty. He is debt in human form. He expects to be paid by someone. For my head? For your silence? She glanced past me. Walk! We walked along the quay where fish thought about being marketable. Fog made boats into rumours. Somewhere a drunk sang a line and forgot the rest. They have a letter, she said without preamble. It bears your seal and Godwin's name and says what you would never write. It is meant to be found. Found where? On La Roche's table, in a desk. He would not pretend to Locke. She took something from her shawl and held it in her palm the way women hold tiny, terrible animals. A second seal, in blue wax, crisp as a winter dawn. This is the impression used. I stole the seal from its owner. He will know it when he reaches for it and finds a stone instead. Who owns it? You owe me a better question, she said. Will you let them hang you as a convenience? I prefer novelty in my execution, I said. I'll disappoint them. Good. She stepped closer, and the smell of her was London and paper, and the first night you sleep after a long campaign. They will try to move Godwin with 3 things: regret, rage, and praise. They will use whichever works first. Keep him out of speeches and away from mirrors. How? Let him save you. That seems unkind. It will keep him alive. Behind us, the consulate door opened, and Locke's silhouette placed itself under the lamp as if it belonged there. Eleanor's hand left mine without pretending it had been there. Until London, she said, and became a shadow that knew where it was going. Mr. Harcourt, Locke called, tell your captain the board will be delighted to see him in Deptford. Will they provide weather? I asked. Only rain, he said. We are not given sunshine in this work. He watched the fog where Eleanor had been and pretended he had always enjoyed looking at nothing. We put back to the ship through water that had learned to sound like silk. On the ladder, Collier took my arm with that discreet firmness that means something had decided to happen without us. Trouble, sir. What kind? The kind that writes itself. He led me to the wardroom. The chest we had taken off the skiff lay on the table with its lid now completely split, as if it had been waiting to be honest. Under the signal books, a folded letter, the paper thin with expensive confidence. The address glowed like a wound. To Commodore Laroche, with compliments from Captain Elias Godwin, R.N. Godwin stood at the far end of the table, as if he were already reading about himself in a future book. Wren looked at the floor and counted his own toes as if they were votes. Who opened it? I asked. I did, Godwin said, because I am done with furniture that lies. I reached for the letter. He put his hand on mine. His glove was cold and steady. You will not read it, he said, almost kindly. Not yet. He turned to the window where the harbour lights walked about in the fog like thoughts that had mislaid themselves. We sail for London on the morning tide. For the inquiry? For the weather, he said. England provides the correct rain for these occasions. He let go of my hand. Mr. Harcourt, we're going to war with words. See to the rigging. Aye, sir. I took the deck. Orders moved. Men obeyed. Rope remembered being rope. In my pocket, something like hope turned its head once and went back to sleep. We sailed at dawn, the Dauntless stepping out like a woman who has remembered her name. The neutral harbour receded behind us without remorse. Ahead, England gathered its clouds and wetted its pens. England met us with rain that had learned all the old tricks. It came slant, it came soft, it came as if it had been instructed to enter the lungs. The Dauntless took her moorings off Deptford like a lady handed the wrong dance card and told to smile. Smoke from the yard chimneys clung low. Cranes loomed like skeletal clergy. The river heaved with barges and the arguments of men who owned them. The dockyard had a particular smell in winter: coal, rope, wet wool, and regret. We came ashore into it with our hats down and our mouths saying polite things. Captain Godwin walked a pace ahead, the rain lining his hat brim, the old brightness in his eye working like an injury he refused to favor. Remember, he said quietly, they prefer careful deaths to lively truths. Which would you have, sir? I asked. I intend to live long enough to be badly remembered, he said, and tugged his gloves tighter. The Board of Inquiry sat in a room that had been designed to make the sea feel like an anecdote. Walls panelled in oak dark as unread history, windows tall and thin, bleeding grey light, a fire that drank coal without gratitude. Mr. Avery Locke stood at the mantel, as if warming his hands at custom. He wore black like a ledger wears ink. Captain, Lieutenant, he said, welcome home. Is this home? Godwin asked. I have forgotten the smell. Burnt money, Locke said with a small, practiced smile. Please. He indicated the table. 3 men occupied it. The chairman was grey and soft, his gaze the colour of dust. The second had a moustache that bracketed his mouth in permanent disapproval. The third was young and meticulous, with a quill that never stopped scratching. We swore oaths with our hands on a book that had seen salt. They asked for facts, and then argued with them. I told them about the fjord, the white flag, the envoy shot by a fool who believed himself a patriot. I told them about Laroche and the shore battery, and the smoke we made to live through it. They listened as men do who are keeping a chair for a verdict that has not yet arrived. And the chest of papers discovered in a neutral harbour, said the moustache, not looking at me as he turned a page. Describe it. Tarred nail-split lid, I said. Signal books, chart copies, and a letter addressed to a French commodore, clearly planted to be found. By whom? The young one asked. By someone who knows our handwriting, I said. Locke's eyes moved without moving. Lieutenant, are you suggesting the Admiralty writes letters to the enemy? I am suggesting that someone hopes we'll believe it, I said. The chairman sighed softly, an old teak timber in bad weather. What, in your professional judgment, is Captain Godwin's state of mind? Godwin sat very straight, hands folded, expression like a ship seen through haze. He did not turn his head toward me. He did not need to. Captain Godwin is as he has always been, I said. Brilliant, unwelcome, and necessary. Do you deem him fit for command? He is at his best under fire. The moustache bristled. England cannot always provide fireworks to keep her captains steady. Then England should avoid lighting fuses, I said. Locke's quill did not pause, though I could feel the room having an opinion. They released me to an adjacent office that had a map of the world, where half the oceans were the wrong color. The clerk there had a face like a closed drawer. He asked for my signature and offered me thin tea. I drank it because sailors will drink anything if it pretends to be hot. From the doorway, Eleanor watched me with the look women wear when they are about to give you a gift you will not enjoy receiving. Walk, she said. We left by a tradesman's door into rain that preferred accuracy. The yard stretched away in cranes and puddles and crows. We walked under the dripping flank of a two-decker in ordinary, her hull like a sleeping animal. Her name had been scraped from her counter, only the ghost of the letters remained. Locke is closing his net, Eleanor said, low. He knows of the letter meant for La Roche. He knows a version bearing your seal exists. Because he commissioned it? I asked. She shook her head. He is a contractor, not an author. He hunts what other men have loosed. There is another hunter. Name? Not yet. I will bring proof before I bring names rain pebbled on her shawl. They intend to press you into one of two stories, loyal fool or ambitious traitor. You will not accept either. Show me door number 3. Redemption, she said. I stopped. For whom? Godwin, she answered, and it hurt that she said it so calmly. They will take him if you do not use him. He is a man, not a lever. He is both, she said, and he will forgive you later, if there is a later. We sheltered under the jut of a warehouse roof where water came down in ropes. She drew from her shawl a folded sheet, oilskin wrapped. I recognized the care before I recognized the hand. From a sympathetic clerk at the Rivers office, she said. Orders drafted, not yet signed. A peace patrol to the Skagerrak to observe French movements. It is a deployment by any name. I scanned the lines. The language was soft as velvet and hard as a cudgel. Dates, positions, a rendezvous with a small squadron under a flag I could not see yet. Who commands? I asked. She tapped a blank space where a name should have lived. That is the whole. You risk much, I said. So do you, she answered, but I am not afloat. That makes my risks cheaper. A bell somewhere tolled the half hour. The rain shifted from careful to thick. I wanted for the first time in weeks to be back aboard, where the lies at least were our own. Why help me? I asked. She tilted her face up so rain cleansed the salt of London from it. Because I prefer my tragedies to occur at sea, she said. They smell cleaner. Footsteps approached in the wet. Locke materialized, as if the rain had written him. He regarded the warehouse roof, the puddles we had made, the distance between our shoulders. Lieutenant, he said. Miss. Eleanor's expression was a neat, expensive blank. No one of consequence. I disagree, he said, and let the point hang. The board is grateful for your candor. Captain Godwin, however, is less generous with his. I will be visiting the Dauntless at dusk to observe the state of his ship and mind. Bring oilskins, Eleanor said, cordial as a knife. Our captain prefers honest weather. Locke's smile was a hinge that worked without needing to. So do I, he said, until dusk. He left, with the exact speed of a man who knows all the distances in a room. You should not be seen with me, Eleanor said, without moving. There are eyes hired to misunderstand. They will misunderstand regardless. I took the oilskin packet and slipped it inside my coat. Thank you. For now, she said, and stepped back into the rain until it took possession of her. Find out who signs the blank. How? You have a ship, she said. Sail close to the paper until it reads itself aloud. We returned aboard with river mud on our boots and London in our lungs. Godwin received me in the great cabin standing, as if chairs would presume something they had not earned. Well, he asked. Preliminary without prejudice, I said, which means preliminary with prejudice. His mouth moved in a shape that might have been a smile in other seasons. Good. They will have to invent our crimes later when they are drunk enough. I showed him the oilskin packet. He read the draft orders twice, once with his lips, once with his eyes. A color passed through his face that reminded me of the north light in the fjord. A peace patrol, he said, savoring the absurdity. Which is to say, go and stand where bullets will pass, and record their manners. Eleanor says the commander's name is the whole, I said. He looked at me a long time. She is in this? She is, I said, his gaze turned inward. A man consulting the part of himself that keeps ledgers on souls. Very well. Mr. Harcourt, we will prepare to sail on the word observe and perform the verb fight. If the orders are signed, we will be in motion before the ink dries. Locke visits at dusk. Of course he does, Godwin said. We will give him a clean deck and a dirty choice. We did. All afternoon, the Dauntless became the ship she always believed herself to be. Lines taut, decks scrubbed, the smell of tar and readiness. The men sensed weather of a different kind building. Collier had them at drill until even the guns looked interested. Wren inventoried his instruments and prepared the kind of bandages that forgive nobody. At dusk, Locke came aboard in a coat that Rain admired. He moved like a surveyor through the batteries, forward to the chains, down to the cable tier, pausing just long enough in each place to insult habit. Smart crew, he said, not smiling. Morale? Unfashionable, I said. They prefer honesty. And the captain? Godwin chose that moment to appear from the companionway, hat in hand, hair uncombable by any known force. He looked like a portrait someone had tried to clean and given up on. For a heartbeat, Locke's professional mask judged him unsparingly. Then Godwin spoke, and the room remembered itself. "Mr. Locke," he said, "observe away. If you find anything you do not like, you will have company." Locke's eyes, which were on loan from colder climates, softened by a degree a thermometer would struggle to record. "Captain," he said, "do you intend to obey your orders when they arrive?" Godwin looked at me as if to ask whether truth was fashionable this season. I gave him nothing. He returned his gaze to Locke. "I intend to serve my country," he said. "If the two coincide, I shall be delighted." Locke nodded once, as if a sum had balanced. "Very well, there will be papers tomorrow." When he was gone, the ship exhaled. Godwin leaned both hands on the table and let silence repair him a little. "He will hang us if we give him the rope," he said. "We will keep ours," I replied, "and tie something useful." That night, rain drilled the deck. I went below to the mail locker and found a square envelope addressed to me in a hand I had never seen. Precise, dry, English to a fault. Inside, a single sentence. "When the order is signed, the fleet commander will be Admiral C-." If you know the man, you know the battle. I did know him. Everyone did. He was a man who loved weather more than men and victory more than survivors. He was the Admiralty's favorite weapon because he never asked the cost. I took the note to Godwin. He read it and let out a breath that might have been a laugh in less devout company. "Then we will not be observing," he said. "We will be counted afterwards." "Do we sail?" "We sail," he said, "before they remember to stop us." Morning came in a sheet of rain that made England look like ink spilled and left. Locke arrived with a sealed packet and the expression of a priest performing a marriage that will become a legal case. Godwin broke the seal and read the orders in a voice that made every man stand half an inch taller. "HMS Dauntless will proceed with all dispatch to the Skagerrak to join a patrol under the overall direction of Admiral C, there to observe, deter, and, if necessary, engage hostile movement." "Observe," Godwin repeated softly, tasting the lie. Then louder, "Hands to unmoor, Mr. Harcourt. Make her ready for sea." "Aye, sir." The deck became intent. Capstans turned, anchors hove short, cables sang. The river received us like a gossip who had been saving a story. We slid past Deptford's cranes and mast houses, past bargemen who swore at the rain and cheered the idea of us, past a line of women under shawls who did not wave. At Gravesend, the wind shifted to a friendlier quarter. Sails climbed the masts and remembered their duty. The Dauntless stretched like a cat and then became what she was born to be. London hunched its shoulders behind us and went to its books. On the evening tide, we cleared the Nore. Darkness thickened, rain thinned to mist. The crew moved with that quiet speed that is the closest thing a ship has to faith. Collier kept the hands neat. Wren brewed a coffee so black it argued with ink. Godwin took the weather side of the quarterdeck and did not leave it. At midnight, weather flares bloomed on the eastern rim of the world. 3, then 5, then a line of them, as if some giant had pricked the horizon until it bled light. The watch murmured and then said nothing. "Signals?" I asked. "Enemy in force, bearings east by north." The midshipman read from the book with a voice that forgot to be young. Godwin's hand closed on the taffrail. The knuckles stood up like reef points. "There he is," he said, and it was not La Roche he meant. It was Admiral C-, and the battle that loves him. I felt the ship lean into the idea of speed. The wind found our canvas and wrote its old song. Rain took a step back and let us pass. "Beat to quarters," I said, and the drum obliged. That crisp, impartial tattoo that makes cowards brave and brave men careful. The Dauntless came alive. Gun crews at their stations, powder monkeys with eyes like flints, Marines adjusting straps that never quite fit. Collier grinned without humor. Wren checked his knives. I looked forward and saw only darkness shaped by light. Somewhere in it a fleet waited, and beyond that the version of England that would make use of whatever we brought back. "Mr. Harcourt," Godwin said, voice easy, eyes on the horizon, "if redemption is fashionable, let us dress accordingly." "Aye, sir." The bell struck. The sea shivered. The sky gathered itself into a story only fools or sailors believed they could read in advance. We bore up under topsails, a white sentence moving at speed towards the next page, and then every light on the horizon went out at once, as if a hand had closed. "Steady," I said. But the word had never meant less.